I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's do another Brexit update. My first very quick question to you is, everything we said in our last video, does it still stand?
Yes, it does basically stand.
Okay, don't go deep into it. You'll get into that. That's my first question. I want you to explain why it still stands.
Yeah.
Now take us into the latest news. We're literally one day removed from that video as well, but we have a lot of news to get to very quickly. It looks like the EU can't agree on an extension time frame. And on the flip side, it looks like the UK government, the MPs, Labour, Tories, they pretty much can't agree to anything. So Alexander, take us into it. What's going on one day after our last video? What's the latest?
Yes. I mean, if we go back to our previous video, the most likely scenario that seemed to be emerging at that point was that there would be a 3-month extension and a general election, probably in November or December, which would be a way of breaking the impasse. What has now clearly happened is that the Labour Party, having previously indicated that it supported an election, and Jeremy Corbyn, its leader, quite clearly does support an election, the Parliamentary Labour Party has had cold feet about it. And the reason they've had cold feet about it is that many of them are Remainers, but they represent constituencies, 2/3 of which voted Leave in the Brexit referendum. So they are terrified that if they go to an election, in December, with Brexit still unresolved, the public, the electorate in these seats, the Leave voting electorate, will blame them for the delay and that they will be simply slaughtered. So they rode back on holding an election in December. They're trying to sort of stop the momentum towards that happening. But the problem they're running into is that, of course, the other person who's playing a huge role in all of this, who is Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and we were the very first people, if you remember, Alex, that Duran was the first news site to suggest that Macron and Johnson might have come to an understanding. He is now quite openly hinting that he won't agree to any sort of extension at all unless an election is called. Now, earlier today and yesterday, he was saying that he might agree to a 15-day extension in order to give Johnson a little more time to get his deal through Parliament, but apparently no extension beyond that. The very latest information that I'm getting now is that he's actually, over the course of the last few hours, hardened his position even further and is basically saying that unless there is a firm commitment from the Labour Party for an election or a clear sign that this deal is going to move forward in Parliament over the next few days, he will come to the EU summit, which is now provisionally slated for either the 29th or the 30th of October, and he's going to veto any further extension at all. At which point, Britain would once again be looking at a no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October.
Okay, so it looks like Johnson and Macron have some sort of game plan. They've agreed to some sort of game plan. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. And clearly, this is a game of very high stakes poker. I mean, the question is, first of all, will Macron stick with this position? Apparently, Merkel is furious with him. And not surprisingly, all of the other EU states do what they invariably do in these situations. They've sort of quietly sided with Merkel. But in reality, we all know that the only two people in this battle who count are Merkel versus Macron. If Macron sticks to his position, let's be very clear about this, be a major defeat for Merkel, who does not want to see Britain crashing out with a no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October. That would be very bad for Germany, and it would severely undermine her position both in Germany and within the EU. So However, having said that, Macron is a volatile individual. One wonders whether he will stick to the position that he is taking. And of course, the other big question is, what will Labour now do? Will they agree to an election? At the moment, the indications are that they're trying to resist it. Or if they are faced with a situation where the option for an election is ruled out, and Macron sticks to his position of not agreeing to a further extension, will they rush round and support Boris Johnson's deal? Or perhaps support it is too strong. Will they just abstain on the vote on it, in which case it will pass through the House of Commons? We will see. It's a high-stakes poker game. Johnson seems to hold the stronger cards. That's what we said when we discussed our previous video. So does Macron. It's a question of how strong their nerves are.
Unless Macron betrays Johnson and
which
sides
is entirely,
with Merkel.
Which is entirely possible.
In which case, because it seems to me that Johnson's play is, as we said in our previous video, the one we did the other day, Johnson's play is either to go for the elections. Correct? That's his first option.
That's his preferred option.
Or to get a vote on his existing plan that he's hammered out with the EU. So it looks like he definitely wants to go the election route now, but he has no problem forcing the Parliament's hand at voting on his plan. But it hinges, and let me know if I got this right, it hinges on his little agreement with Macron, that Macron continues to hold firm and not give the 3-month extension that Merkel wants.
That Merkel wants. Exactly. That is exactly correct. That is exactly.
Why does Corbyn want an election and Labour doesn't, though?
Well, Corbyn is confident, I think, that he will do better in the election than most of his parliamentary party thinks. Now, many people think that's delusional. The only thing I would say about that is that he did an awful lot better in the June 2017 election than he did in this one. But that's his position. He's always been more comfortable fighting elections than fighting these battles in Parliament. And at some level, I think I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. I think one should not underestimate the degree of antipathy between Jeremy Corbyn and some members of his parliamentary Labour Party. I think Corbyn will probably feel to himself that if Labour loses the election and loses it badly, but some of these people who've been such a problem for him in the parliamentary Labour Party lose their seats, there'll be a side of him that will not be entirely sorry.
And can I also make another kind of out there suggestion about Corbyn?
Yeah.
Not only, I agree with your point there. That's an interesting way to look at it, and I agree with it. But can you also make the assumption that Corbyn would be pretty okay with the Brexit deal that Johnson has struck with Juncker in the EU? Because you've said it many times, Corbyn really doesn't have his heart in the Remain campaign all that much. He's actually maybe even more of a leaver than anything else.
I agree. In fact, I'm going to say what I personally think Corbyn's preferred situation would be. I think deep down in his heart of hearts, something he's not prepared to admit to anybody, he would like Macron to veto an extension. That's what he would prefer. So he can't say that.
He's playing a little chess too.
He's playing a little chess too, yes. But that's I think what Corbyn would prefer. In a way, getting Brexit out of the way puts him in a much better position in an election going forward. He could then justifiably postpone holding the election until the spring. The election would no longer be about Brexit. He would then be able to push with his various very ambitious socialistic program that he's proposing. And who knows, it was popular in June 2017. It might be popular again this time. But that's, I think, deep down what he would like most.
Yeah, he can't win on Brexit, running on Brexit, but he has a chance to do something if he runs on his policy platform. I think that's his thinking.
I think that
Brexit's a loser for him.
I think that's exactly right. And I think his advisor, his top advisor, Seamus Milne, I think thinks exactly like that. So I think I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, he wants it out of there, get it out of the way so he can get back to policy.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Okay. Merkel now. What's Merkel's strategy here? How's she moving the chess pieces? I would imagine she wants a 3, 6, 9, 19-month extension.
Yes. Oh, I think she doesn't want any kind of Brexit at all. Certainly not while she remains Chancellor. I mean, she can kick it down the road, which is what she tends to do when problems come up. She wants to kick it down the road. I mean, she would like a 3-month extension with every intention and expectation of granting a further 3-month extension when the existing 3-month extension runs its course on the 31st of January. That's her strategy. What is she going to try and do? The answer is she's going to try and pile the pressure on Macron. And what she's doing is she's saying she's spreading stories and getting her various allies within the European Union, including, of course, Donald Tusk, whom I'm sure is playing a big role in all of this, to spread stories that Macron is interfering in British politics by siding with Johnson, and this is something that the European Union supposedly doesn't do. It supposedly doesn't interfere in the internal politics of member states or insist on elections. I think many people in Southern Europe, in Greece and Cyprus, would be rather surprised to hear that the European Union does not interfere in the internal politics of EU member states. But that's what Merkel is doing at the moment. She's pushing all the pressure that she possibly can on Macron to buckle. And she'll also be making promises to him, because Merkel makes lots of promises. Promises of every conceivable description that we don't really know about, and there'll be all kinds of toing and froing. Not Macron and Merkel directly, but their various officials will be talking to each other, and she'll no doubt be making promises to Macron for various forms of EU reform, for all kinds of things. Macron would be a fool if he believed those promises. So many people have done things in reliance upon Merkel's promises. David Cameron, our former Prime Minister, talked about the half-life of a Merkel promise.
So she'll be, doing a little carrot and stick with Macron to try and flip him.
Absolutely. And she'll have the EU bureaucracy working for her, as it always does.
Right. Okay. So say Macron doesn't turn on Johnson.
Yes.
But Labour holds firm and does not go for the election.
Yes.
Then you end up, if I'm not mistaken, you said, this will all shake out around the 29th, 30th with the EU.
Yes.
Then you really have one day
Yes.
for Parliament to hash it out. What are the chances that they revoke Article 50? They go the nuclear option.
Well, it's possible. It's certainly possible. And of course, there are some people in Parliament who would support that. I mean, the Liberal Democrats, which is the other important opposition party, that is their policy. That is actually their policy, to revoke Article 50.
But they have to vote that, right?
They have to vote that. I personally think, even in a situation where the only choice was between a no-deal Brexit and revoking Article 50, that many MPs, Labour and Conservative, would not be prepared to vote to revoke Article 50. I might be wrong.
They would prefer Boris Johnson's deal over all those scenarios.
Well, they would certainly prefer a Boris Johnson deal, either to revoking Article 50 or to a no-deal Brexit. But if the choice came to a no-deal Brexit or revoking Article 50, I think most of them in the end would hold their noses and go for a no-deal Brexit. That's my guess.
Okay.
I'm not absolutely sure about that.
Right. Okay, game plan this out, Alexander, to end this video.
Well,
is there a possibility, for some grand compromise here that they put together?
yes.
I mean, this is coming down to the wire.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Yes. There is a possibility. There always is a possibility in this kind of scenario for some kind of compromise. I cannot tell you what the form of that compromise would be, because it's impossible to say. But one possibility that has been floated is that Boris Johnson gets Jeremy Corbyn to agree to pass his Brexit, his deal, and then offers Jeremy Corbyn further down the line after Brexit is out of the way, and we've left the European Union, and we're involved in these negotiations, which I said are the necessary to achieve a final deal. He offers him a possible vote on a future deal for a customs union. Now, Conservatives would oppose that. Conservatives would strongly oppose that. And I think there might be problems at that point getting it through the House of Commons. But it's possible that offered that, Jeremy Corbyn might go along and agree to Boris Johnson's deal on that basis. We would see.
If Merkel gives Macron, say, not a 3-month, say she tells Macron, look, I'll give you a month and a half. Does that really change dynamics? In other words, Merkel kind of strings Macron along a little bit and he doesn't lose face?
I can't see how that changes the dynamics unless the British agree to hold an election within that period. And 1.5 months isn't really enough for that. So, I mean, it would be another extension to no purpose. And Macron is saying at the moment that he's not prepared to agree to an extension for no purpose. We'll see whether he holds.
Yeah, we'll see whether he holds. But it looks like, is it safe to say that Johnson holds all the cards, but he's dependent on Macron at this point? I mean, it seems to me that Macron is the game changer here.
Boris Johnson holds all the cards except one, which is the ace. Macron holds the ace. It's Macron who decides who wins this game at the end of the day. That is an incredible situation to be in for Britain, by the way, that it now all depends on what the President of France decides to do. I think our politicians should think about that and the implications of that, and should be extremely concerned when they eventually do face the voters and admit to that. But that's the position we're in now.
It's an incredible outcome, isn't it? I mean, who would have thought when we started all of this that it would be Macron that's going to decide which way this goes?
Well, indeed, who would have thought it? I mean, I would tell you one group of people who certainly did not think it, and that was the Remainers in the House of Commons and in the political establishment in Britain. They assumed that Macron was one of themselves. I don't think it ever crossed their mind that he would play this game in the way that he is. If Macron does veto an extension next week, the anger and the sense of betrayal on the part of the Remainers in Britain will be a wonder to behold.
I wonder if Macron is ruthless enough to deliver such a death blow to Merkel, because I really think if he goes against this wish of Merkel's, I mean, he's basically just completely sunk Merkel for good. Yes. I mean, I think you're looking at a major shift in the power dynamics of the European Union.
Yes, I'm not sure. I think the question is this: is he vain enough to do it, and is he determined enough to do it? I think you're absolutely right. If he vetoes the extension next week, he in effect becomes the power broker, the key person in Europe. Merkel at that point is sunk. He's asserted France and French power and himself as the leader, the effective leader of Europe, without whose agreement nothing happens. Now, that, let's be quite clear,
it's huge.
Is huge. Some of us might have certain concerns about the prospect of a Europe and an EU led by Emmanuel Macron. But it would be huge, and it would be huge in terms of the dynamics within Europe. And of course, it would be the beginning of the end. Well, not the beginning, it would be the end of the end for Angela Merkel. I can't really see how she could survive as Chancellor of Germany after something like that.
Wow. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on that subscribe button down below. Click on that notifications bell to make sure you get notifications when we publish a new video. Hit that like button, share the channel with everybody you know. You can get an audio copy of this video. Follow us on iTunes and on SoundCloud. You'll find a link in the description box. And also donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. You'll also find links there in the description box. Your donation helps us out a lot. And go to the Duran shop, pick up some merchandise, pick up a magic mug like the Lavrov mug that Alexander has.
Absolutely. The Alpha mug that Alex has. These are great mugs, 15 ounces. Look, we're both going to drink from them. Alex has just drunk from his. I've just drunk from mine. I've had tea in mine. This is actually, by the way, just for people to know, this is Iron Goddess of Mercy oolong tea from China, one of my great favorite teas. It's a fantastic tea. Strongly recommend it, and I strongly recommend this mug as the perfect tea, as the perfect mug to drink that kind of tea from. So it's a fantastic mug. It's 15 ounces. It's perfect porcelain, beautiful, strong, elegant porcelain body. It feels great to hold. It feels great to touch. It's got amazing luster. And this one, of course, has the picture of Sergei Lavrov, my favorite foreign minister, the foreign minister of Russia. And Alex's mug has the emblem of the Alpha Force, one of the best special forces units in the world. I think that's not disputed. No one anywhere would deny that. So we've got mugs, like we've just shown you. We've got amazing shirts, like the one I'm wearing. It's a beautiful 100% cotton T-shirt with a wonderful Duran double-headed eagle there. Alex is also wearing a Duran shirt with a Duran double-headed eagle. Different from the Russian one, by the way. But we've also got lots of T-shirts. We've got short sleeve T-shirts like these. You've got long sleeve T-shirts. We've got hoodies. We've got hats. We've got stickers. We've also got books, including a book on Brexit. If you want to learn all about Brexit, we've got a discussion of Brexit there. And great things. Alex has recently been refreshing the shop. We've got a great new line of great new products. So help the Duran, go to our shop, buy these great products. The feedback we're getting on them is tremendous. It's terrific. People love them. So what are you waiting for? Help the Duran, help yourself. Alex will tell you how.
You'll find the link for the Duran shop in the description box as well, theduranshop.com. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.